Recording. So, welcome to Babysitter Tips. I am Becca Stackhouse, and I am the Crisp County Family and Consumer Science County Extension Agent. And today we are going to give you some babysitter tips, and then we will tell you a little bit about what Extension is, but I will let the other two introduce themselves as we get started.
Hey, I'm Ashley Childs, and I am the Thomas County Family and Consumer Science Extension Agent.
Hi, I'm Brad Averill. I'm the Family and Consumer Science Agent in Madison and Oglethorpe County.
So today you're going to hear about tips, but let us tell you a little bit about what Extension is. So Extension is the outreach aspect of the University of Georgia, and we are here to bring you research-based information and to give you things that are backed by some kind of science base. And so each of us have different local issues that we focus on. So in Crisp County, we focus on healthy relationships, so parenting education, parent and adults and teen relationship education is a big one. And then we also focus on healthy homes, and green cleaning is a big one, so laundry education and healthy and green cleaning. And then our third one is chronic diseases. So those are the three issues that I focus on the biggest, and so there's a lot of programming that happens in that area. And those programs right now are available virtually, but I do them in person too as well when we get back to being able to do that. So, Ashley, what are your local issues?
So the local issues in Thomas County are chronic disease and obesity prevention. So a lot of what I do is focus around an initiative that we already have established in Thomas County called the Live Better campaign. And so with that, it's a partnership with the hospital, and they've developed this awesome network of different organizations around Thomas County that are all focused and dedicated to improving the health of the Thomas County citizens. So a lot of what I do is programming on healthy eating, healthy lifestyles. We talk a little bit about fad dieting. So nutrition and health is really kind of my whole grain bread and butter. And I love what I do, and I'm excited just to be able to share with you today some nutrition tips for making healthy snacks while you're babysitting.
And my plan of work in Madison and Oglethorpe County focuses around chronic disease prevention, food safety for restaurants, and also focuses on healthy relationships for youth and families.
So as we get started, if you ever feel like we're not particularly looking at the camera, it might be because we're looking at one of our other screens that has different information. So it might be why we're not looking specifically at the camera. So we will get started with your objectives today. And what you're going to learn is you're going to learn about babysitting tips. You're going to learn some first aid tips. And then Brad is going to tell you about children and some babysitting activities, how you can get them involved. And then Ashley is going to tell you about creating some healthy snacks that you can have while you're in that babysitting aspect. So the babysitting course is just to give you a concept of being prepared if it's your first babysitting job. It might even just be some clues to what to do as you may be getting started, or you just may need some refreshers of what's happening. We're going to go through the basics, but there is a more in-depth class that can happen. There is an American Red Cross certification that can certify you in CPR, first aid, and AED use. It does have to be in person. It does have about 8 to 10 hours of in-person contact. So if you are interested in that, you can reach out to us. Our information will be on the end of being able to reach out. We'll be happy to talk through any specific questions that you come up with. There is a evaluation that will take you to a Qualtrics that we hope you fill out if you go through all of this to get a certification of completion for the course. So with that being said, we're going to get started, and I will start you off. So before you really get too far into it, I want you to think about the being a babysitter and if it is even for you. So do you even enjoy children? That's a yes or no. So think about it and write down yes or no to that first question. The second question is, are you friendly and helpful when you are around babies or small children? Answer the yes or no to that one. Can you stay calm during an emergency when your young children are the ones depending on you? Because when you're babysitting, you are the one that's in charge. So answer that as a yes or no. Then, am I a babysitter enough to deal with the demands and problems that a young child is going to be asking you? Because you are the one that has to get the milk out of the cabinet or the refrigerator, get the snack out of the cabinet, things like that. So can you handle the demands that are being asked of you of a very young child? And then the fifth one is, if you are babysitting, do you mind caring for a sick child? So yes or no. So those are the 5 questions I want you to take a minute, think about, and then how many of those were yeses? Were all of them yeses? Then you're going to be just fine. Were any of them no's? When you're coming up with what your babysitting plan's going to look like, think about what those no's. Did you not want to deal with babies? Then you don't need to take jobs that are going to have infants with them. So think about those. Think about, do you really want to babysit? And then answer these questions honestly for yourself, and then talk to your close friends and your family for some input, because they're the ones that are going to know you best. Like example, in our household growing up, I was the one that babysat, and I watched children from 3-4 weeks old all the way up to the 10 and 12-year-olds. So I enjoyed babysitting, but my sister didn't so much. So she did more of the watching dogs. So think about that. It doesn't have to look like a babysitting business. You can do other things to make some money. But in the time that we're so currently in, you may find yourself babysitting and helping out a neighbor or a family member or friends that have small children, and they no longer have somewhere for them to go while they're working. So we're going to walk through some ideas of what that babysitting is going to look like and can look like for you. So who do you babysit? So if you are a individual and you are wanting to become a babysitter, then you are looking at the ages. So it is possible for you to babysit from newborn infants all the way up to teenagers. And that's also going to depend on what your age is as well. Abilities. So when you're watching kids, there's going to be a variety of what their abilities are, even when they're in the same family. And then the hours. So watching kids can happen during the day, it can happen in the evening, can be nighttime, or your babysitting jobs can be a combination of these things. So as we get started more into this babysitter, what do you think a babysitter is? So this is the care of a child or children while parents are not at the house. Who do you babysit? Babysitting is a job that can be one or multiple children at a time that are these varying ages, the varying abilities, and the children can be children that have special needs. And so these are all things to consider while you're starting to build this business or while you're continuing this babysitting jobs. So as you are getting started with your job, these are some things to think about, and these are some things to do. So you're going to want to, before you get started, you want the number and the physical address of the job that you're taking. So you want the phone number of the family that you're babysitting for, and then you're going to want the address of where you're going to be doing this job. Especially, so when you babysit, you can be babysitting multiple children, but that doesn't mean that they all come from the same house. So the children that you babysit can come from different families. So it's important to know whose house you're going to be babysitting at. The second part is receive the details for the job. So point 2 is receive those details. Know what is important and what to know about your job. The third one is, before you accept it, check if you're even available for that particular time in that particular place. Because if you're not available, then you don't need to say yes and then go, oh, never mind, I can't. Because that's really going to reflect on your character, and it'll reflect on getting a future job. And then this one is really important because you are going into someone else's home, And you may or may not know them, but it's important that you have a code word for your parents that you can send them in a text, that you can tell them over a phone call, that is a code word that tells your parents or your family members, your guardians, that you feel unsafe and that they need to come help you. And so this is important because you need to be safe in the jobs that you accept. So we're going to talk about a little bit about your skills and your abilities. So when we talk about skills and abilities, there's all kinds of things that can go here. But the first one is chat with your parents. Your parents are going to be the ones that you need to establish what your job is going to look like. So before you go to begin any kind of babysitting job, then you first sit down with your parents and you talk to them about what your idea is for the business, and then hear what your parents' idea is. And then help with your expectations and your parents' expectations to be set. So make sure that y'all are on the same page of what those expectations are going to look like for both of you. So this discussion with your parents is when you might be allowed to babysit. It might be how often you babysit. It might be how many children you babysit. These are all questions that you want to establish with your parents before you take the first job. Our second point is know what your law is, and that's going to depend on what state you're in. Since we're with the University of Georgia, I'm going to tell you what Georgia's state laws say and what's written out as some guidelines. So the first thing is if children are 8 years or younger, then they really can't be left at home alone at all. The second is if children are between the ages of 9 and 12, they can't, and their level of maturity is at a high enough level, they can be left alone for less than 2 hours, but no more of a time period. And then the third one is, which is kind of where you fall in, is where you can start babysitting, is about 13 years old or older, depending on if you have an adequate level of maturity. So this is why it's important to talk to your parents. You may be left alone and you may perform that role as a babysitter, as an authority by the parents. And you can do it for up to 12 hours, but that's a really long time to be responsible for kids. So keep that in mind when you're setting up those jobs. The third point is that you want to think about what your abilities and skills are. So if you go back to our first one of, is babysitting even right for you? This is where that's going to play in. So before you get started, you need to assess what your own abilities are. You need to, this can be done through learning your skills, learning what your ability is, learning what your interests are. You might need to ask yourself if you are comfortable to watch an infant, if you're comfortable changing diapers, if you can prepare bottles, clean up messes. If a child has a special need, are you aware of it, and are you able to take care of this child? So those are some important things to think about as you're looking at what your skills and abilities are. Does it match the job? So in the family, before you accept the job. So interview that family before you accept it. Why is this important? It's important to know if the job is right for you, to see if that job is right for you. Once you have accepted this job, then you're going to want to provide your parents with that number, that address, and then while that babysitting job is happening, have some ways that you can check in with your parents throughout the whole time you're babysitting, and know what the job is. So remember, you want to chat with your family. You want to know what the laws are in your state. You want to think about your abilities and your skills, and you want to interview the family before you ever just say yes. There are also alternatives to just being a babysitter. You can be a mother's helper. So let me define what a mother's helper is for you. This is a person who helps a mother mainly by looking after the children. So you can do this job, and it may be while the mother runs errands, you just sit in the car with the kids. It may be that while the mom is able to perform household tasks, you watch the kids so that she can go clean the toilet and not have to worry about having to go pick up an infant. Or it may be that the mom is now needing to work at home and she needs her kids to be occupied for a few hours. So you can go watch them, play with them, interact with them so that she can really dive herself into whatever she's got a project of. Or the dad, just whoever is, you can be that helping hand just to give an extra hand in the house. So that's an alternative way to set up your babysit business. Let's chat about what the business can look like. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you want to create a resume. So why do you want to create a resume? This is important because that way you can kind of give it to those families. So now that you've learned what some steps are, let's chat about this. So create a resume. Let me pull up the examples for you of the resumes. So creating a resume, you're going to want a few things on that resume. You want to make sure that you've got your information, so like your phone number, and maybe create an email address that's specifically for your babysitting business, because you don't want something that is a crazy name, something that's you've just have as your email that junk emails go to and things like that. You want to make sure that it's a professional looking one, or just your name is a good one. So let me show you 2 examples of what some resumes can look like. So here is one example of what a resume can look like. So you're going to be a babysitter. You want it for some guidelines. Your contact information, you can totally leave off your address. It doesn't necessarily have to be on there for babysitting jobs. Then you want to put what your objective is. What is your objective for your babysitting job? What do you want people to know about it? So you're a responsible babysitter with experience caring for children during weekends, evenings, summers, winter breaks. You're skilled in having fun, engaging activities. You are trusted by parents. You can put your education in there. If you do happen to have any kind of certifications that are like CPR certifications, those are really good ones to have on. Sometimes that's what a parent's looking for in a babysitter. You can put if you finished high school, if you're still in high school. I'll show you another example in a minute of middle school. So you can put that you've babysat for, if you've babysat before, you can put that experience down. If you've been responsible for watching younger siblings, that can be a good thing. So an example is you cared for a boy and girl. They were ages 5 and 8. What were you responsible for doing? What did you help them do? And then you can have a little skills table on here or on your resume. So if you're going to take care of infants, are you comfortable with diaper changes and potty training? Do you have any CPR skills? Are you responsible? So this is one example of what a resume can look like. Here's another example of what a resume can look like. So same thing, you got your name on it, you got an address on it. You can or can't leave that one off. You've got that email address that's going to give you a good appearance. You've got your phone number so they can get in touch with you. You can put your education. So see, this one's a middle schooler. So they were at the elementary school, 6th grader, and then you can put what some of your, you might be on honor roll, you might be some of those basic things. You can put your training on here. So that again would be if you've got a CPR class and then additional trainings that you've attended. This could be counted as an additional, the babysitter tips. Any experience that you may have had, and then if you can get any references from those experiences, that's a good way to do it. So let me get us back onto the presentation. So resumes are a very important thing for you to think about, and it's very important for you to have a resume created. It's also important to talk about money. Why is this important? So you can approach this subject in a number of ways. One is that you can discuss the rate beforehand with the parents that have hired you for that job. That can happen in that interview, or it can happen as you accept the job. The other is you can just be fine with whatever they pay you at the end of the night. But it is important for it to be a topic of discussion. So you can have a base rate that you want to charge. That could start anywhere from $6 to $10 an hour. And then if you wanted to, that could just be what you charge no matter how many kids you're watching. Or I have seen it done to where you add $1 to $3 per any additional children that are added. So like you might charge $10 if you're watching a family of 3, but then if it gets outside of that, you add another $1 or $2 to it. But remember that setting a higher price can be detrimental to you because you might miss out on some jobs because parents don't want to pay you $50 for 2 hours because you're watching their kids for their childcare, and then they're going to go out to dinner, or they're going to go escape just a little bit and pay another $50. That adds up to $100 a night real quick. So remember that this is important to set your rate ahead of time and talk to the parents about what you're going to do. Because at the end of the night, you can't just expect them to pay you $15 an hour if you never had this discussion to start with. So you don't always have to do it for money either. So I can give you an example. When I was in college, so that I could get out of my dorm room, I watched a brother and sister while their mom would either work at home or while she went out and ran errands or things like that. While they would give me an exchange, I was able to do my laundry. I got snacks, and then they gave me some meals. So it was an exchange of me just being able to get outside of the dorm room, but not necessarily having any money exchange. So lastly, remember to build yourself a resume for babysitting. Write a brief written summary of your skills, your qualifications, your experience, along with your personal information. You give your resume out and it doesn't have a phone number on it, people can't get a hold of you. And then if you do give it out, make sure you're responsive to any text messages or phone calls you get for potential babysitting jobs. So the recommendations for people, and recommendations can be anybody you've babysat for, or a teacher or family member, or just somebody that can give you a good reference of your character. So before you start the job, the family is your customer. So you want to make sure that you show them respect and you show them courtesy. You want to let them know that you appreciate their business. You want to make sure that you are available before you accept the job. If you have a curfew, you need to make sure that the parents know this before you accept the job. Never babysit if you are sick. Only cancel if an emergency comes up. And if you need to cancel, try to give the family you accepted the job from plenty of time to be able to find another babysitter if that's what's needed. So during the job, you want to always arrive just a little early. Never show up late. Follow the family's household rules and their instructions. Never leave children unattended to be on your phone while you're babysitting. You're not there to be on your phone. You are definitely there to watch the kids. So you don't want to be too engrossed in your phone. Always clean up messes from feeding children, playing games, anything that you've made a mess with. Don't leave a mess for the parents to clean up. And then when you are feeding kids, don't just rummage through the pantry yourself. Make sure that you've been given permission by the family to eat anything. And then do not have anyone come over unless you have prior permission from the parents to do so. Because remember, you're not there to socialize. You are there for your babysitting job. And then after the job, you want to thank the family for the babysitting job. You never want to gossip about them because this could cause you to lose some future cases, some future babysitting jobs because of the case of gossiping about them. So remember that it is important to take care of the families that you're going to babysit for. Now let's talk a little bit about washing your hands. Why is this important? Because our hands have lots of germs that can live on them. So the times you want to wash your hands are before you prepare food, after you change diapers, helping kids with clean up, handling garbage, coughing, or blowing your nose. So those are some important times to wash your hands, and Ashley is going to give us a few of these tips through a video.
Hey y'all, my name is Ashley Childs and I'm the UGA Extension Family and Consumer Science Agent in Thomas County. Today I wanted to talk to you about the correct way, yes, there is a correct way to wash your hands. So it's really important to wash your hands so that way you don't get yourself sick and you don't spread germs to other people. Germs are pesky little creatures that like to hide in the cracks and crevices in our hands, and it's really important that we wash them off. So today, we're going to go through the steps on how to wash your hands. You ready? Okay, let's see how I did. I'm going to use my handy dandy germ eliminator. Get it? Handy dandy. Okay, so I guess we should probably turn off the lights to illuminate. Be right back. We're back. Ready? Illuminate. Ew. My hands are gross. Oh no. Ew. Be right back. So I think I need to spend a little more time and effort on washing my hands. Don't you? Yeah. Okay, so let's try that again. So first off, we're going to turn on the water. Next, we're going to wet our hands. We're going to apply soap and rub them together. Go ahead and turn the faucet off at this point too, so we're not wasting water. And now comes the really technical part. So you want to scrub your hands for 20 seconds. So this is when a lot of people like to practice their ABCs, or you can sing the happy birthday song to yourself 2 times through to count out 20 seconds. But what you want to do is make sure that you get the backs of your hands in between your fingers, up on your wrists, underneath your fingernails. You guys saw how dirty my hands were. It's pretty gross. Now you can turn the faucet back on. And you're going to wash your hands downward to wash those pesky germs down the sink. Grab a clean paper towel. Turn off the faucet so you're not recontaminating your hands on the dirty faucet. Then you can grab another clean paper towel and dry your hands at this point. Now you can use some hand sanitizer. Remember, hand sanitizer works best on clean surfaces, which is why it's important to use after you wash your hands. Some good times to wash your hands are after you touch any animals, after you take out the garbage, after going to the restroom, and especially after sneezing, coughing, or blowing your nose. So if you have any more questions about proper hand washing techniques or when to wash your hands, contact your local UGA Extension office. Remember, keep calm and wash your paws, Georgia.
So that is some important reasons of why to wash your hands. So next, we're going to talk about your appearance. Why does this matter? Appearance is important to dress in a clean and appropriate clothing and wear comfortable shoes that are appropriate for working around children. You don't want to be in high heels when you're going to watch kids because you've got to be able to keep up with them. You want to make sure that you do bring a change of clothes a lot of times because accidents do happen and you don't want to have to stay dirty. Remember, you are the role model and the way that you dress does matter. Also remember that there may be cultural, religious differences between you and your babysitting job, and this might be important in what you choose to wear. So those are all things that are important to keep in mind when you're dressing for the job and you're dressing with your appearance. Make sure that what you're wearing is appropriate for the job you're showing up at. Let's dive a little bit into leadership and why leadership is even important. Because even in a babysitting job, leadership is important. So let me define what leadership is for you first. So leadership is a person who guides and motivates others towards some kind of common goal. So the common goal in this leadership is keeping the children that you took the job for safe. So everyone can learn to be a leader. It is a skill that we practice, and it's one that we develop over time. So your goal is to motivate the children in your care. The goal is to keep them safe, have respect, maintain a routine, and most importantly, it's to have fun. So you want to practice for the children that you're babysitting for. You are a role model. You want to make sure that you keep respect. You want to communicate clearly. That's with the parents and the children. You want to have motivation, take action, and decision making. Why is this even important? Because you are the role model. You teach respect. You are the lead for communication. You provide the motivation, and you lead by taking the action and serves as a decision maker. So there are 4 leadership styles that you're going to want to integrate as you're babysitting because they all have different purposes as you're babysitting. So democratic leader, this is one who makes in making the decision that you let the children process what the decision is before you just make this decision. So it may be, do you want grapes or strawberries for your snack? And you let the kid decide before you jump in and make this decision. So you can use this style when safety isn't involved. So it's allowing the kids to make the decision, but their safety is not in jeopardy. Hands-off leadership style. This is a leadership that you can use. You're still actively involved, but you can use this if the children may be slightly not getting along, but you let them work it out themselves. So they may have a small conflict like a rule on the board game that they're playing, and you let them work it out. As long as their safety is not in jeopardy, you can let them work it all out with the hands-off approach. So a directive leader, it needs to be used for emergencies and when the children may be in danger or to prevent an injury. So this is where you directly put the guidelines out of what needs to happen. And then you have the sympathetic leader. So this might be what you use as you're first starting this babysitting job, especially if it's a new job, and that you are both just getting to know each other. So take the time to listen to each of the child, make sure that they feel that they are heard, and that you can create that trust between you and the child that you're taking this job on for. Because these jobs may be repetitive, and it might be one that you end up doing for years, weeks, months. So just keep that in mind as you're building your leadership style for the babysitting jobs that you're taking on. Communication. This is important, right? So, let me move myself here. Communication. You got some simple tips to keep. You want to keep it simple. You want to keep it positive. You want to be specific. So when you are communicating, yes, I will take the job from 1 to 3 on Tuesday. Be specific. Then show respect. You're showing respect to the parents you're communicating with, the kids. You're showing that respect to everybody. Be calm and listen. Listening is important. When you're communicating with children, you want short sentences that they are able to understand and comprehend. You want to tell them what you are expecting or what you are wanting them to do, and then provide options. So that can be when you're being specific, providing some options. Do you want to go play outside or do you want to watch a movie? that can be one of those options. So when you're working on these decisions, you want to use the FIND model is a good one to use. So what is the FIND model? The FIND model is figure out your problem. So figure out what that problem is, identify what possible solutions are, name what the pros and cons of each of the solutions are, and then decide which solution is best, and then go ahead and take the action. Let's talk a little bit about poisons. So we all in general know that mushrooms, you can only eat ones that you buy from the store. You can't just go out in your backyard and eat a mushroom because it could be poisonous. Snakes are the same way. It can be poisonous or it cannot, but you have to get really close to find out if the snake's poisonous or not. So we stay away from it, right? We're going to talk about some household ones now. So I'm going to switch the screen to where you can see me better. So let's talk a little bit about what these poison looks-alikes look like inside of a house. So in a house, we may see these. We may see things like this. This very easily, that's medicine, right? But very easily to a child, it may look like M&Ms. They look real similar, don't they? So it's important for us to keep that in mind when we are with children. And when you're leaving stuff laying around like a purse or a bag, you may want to be real careful, especially if you have any kind of medicine in it. It's like the old thing. What's in grandma's purse? It could be anything, right? So that's where that can become dangerous. Let's look at a few more. So we got candy versus medicine. They look very, very similar. We got sand versus Parmesan cheese. Again, very similar. We've got ones that can really cause poison. This is sprinkles. Those are the little gel things. Very easily a kid might eat them, but this one is going to cause you some problems in that babysitting job. Then we've got, this is one I want you to think about. These very easily look like something that could be eaten, but these can be found under our kitchen cabinets for laundry detergent, dishwashing detergent, or they can be found as our laundry detergent. So you want to be careful that things like this are out of reach of kids and they can't get in it. Let me show you a few more. This one. If you got young children and toddlers, apple juice is something that they often drink. But if you think about this in this bottle, this is not apple juice. This is pine sol. So you've got to be aware of what chemicals look like. Let me give you this one. You got gummy vitamins and you got vitamins. They look very similar, but the bright ones are what candy is. The darker ones are not. But they smell good, so it still could mean that a kid ends up eating it. This one's real good. You got water and you got rubbing alcohol. They look the exact same. They smell differently. But this one right here is your rubbing alcohol. So I just want you to think about that in aspects of, you may know what the difference, and you may be able to read the bottle, but that doesn't mean that the kids that you're babysitting can read, can smell the difference, know the difference. And so you want to be aware of not leaving things that are dangerous or poisonous sitting anywhere around. So the next part we're going to talk about first aid tips. So you've got cuts and scrapes that we're going to talk about, nosebleeds, and minor burns. So this is where you may want to create a first aid box that you carry with you in a bag, that you carry with you if you're driving in your car, those kinds of things. So cuts and scrapes. These can be caused by falls, scissors, knives, or other household sharp objects. They can be, you want to be sure that you wash it out, and then you want to make sure that you use warm, soapy water. You want to dab it with a sterile gauze pad. So gauze pads are something that you can find. So it can be something like, these are gauze pads, and you can just have a stash of them that you put in like a Ziploc bag, or you can buy them in little individual packages so that you've got clean, sterile bandages to be able to care for the scrape or the wound. Then you're also going to want a stash of Band-Aids to put in that first aid kit that you create so that you can care for the minor things that happen. If you end up with a kid that's got a nosebleed because they fell or it's caused by an injury, you're going to want to press the bridge of the nose right here and hold it for about 5 minutes while the kid is sitting or standing. And you want them to lean their head forward, not backwards, because if you lean your head backwards and you have a nosebleed, it's going to go down your throat, and that can cause choking problems. If you end up with a kid that's got a minor burn, this can happen from touching a hot stove, a hot pan, or it can happen from hot water, it can happen from hot sugar. There's all kinds of ways that can cause minor burns. So immediately you want to run it under cold water, and then you're going to want to cover it loosely, very loosely. It's very important not to tightly wrap this. Never apply ointment to any kinds of burns. So that's really important to know. So other things that you may consider having in this first aid kit in case you need, there are gauze that are rolls that you could have. You can also have some bandage type things, ace bandages. And then as Ashley's going to talk about in her section, she'll talk a little bit about food allergies. But you may babysit a kid that's got one of these. This is an EpiPen. And so if you've got kids that have EpiPens, you're going to want to be aware of this because this could be very important during your babysitting job, especially if you're babysitting for longer periods of time. If anything is severe and terrible, you're going to want to make sure that you call 911 and report it to the parents. If it's a serious injury, you want to report it to the parents immediately. If it's a scrape or cut, you may be able to wait until the parents get home, but this might be something that you talk about with the parents during that initial interview of, if we have some scrapes and bumps and things that happen, how would you like me to report that to you? The last thing that you may want to have in your kit is you may want to have some gloves and some tape. That way you can loosely tape that bandage if you need to. So those are just a few items that you may want to create a first aid kit out of. So we are going to talk about holding and picking up babies. So when you pick up a baby, there are several ways you can do it. You can pick a baby up by putting your hand here and putting them on the bottom as you pick them up and put them into your arms. If they're laying like this, you can put one hand here and you can put one hand here as you pick them up. Always with any kind of infant, make sure you're supporting the head in some kind of way. You can also hold them on your shoulders like that. You can hold them upright like this. So just make sure any way you're holding them, you're supporting the head. Then we're going to talk a little bit about a toddler. Toddlers can get heavy quickly. Even though they don't weigh very much, they still can cause strain if you don't pick them up correctly. So make sure you put arms under each arm and you want to hold their body securely as you lift with your knees, not just your back, because that can seriously hurt you. Make sure that you bend at your knees as you pick up that toddler underneath the arms and lift up. So, snack time or meal times. This is another important time that if you are babysitting for longer periods of time, that you're gonna have to be ready to do. So, let's talk a little bit about our infant again. So our infant may need you to warm up their bottle. So you want to make sure that your first step is wash your hands, because you're dealing with germs that could be on your hands from whatever y'all have done in the day. So before you get the bottle, make sure you wash your hands. Then you gather any supplies to the instructions of what the parents have told you of how the bottle is to be prepared or fixed during the time. Then you want to warm the bottle and prepare the bottle as you're directed. Always shake a bottle so that it's evenly lukewarm and it doesn't have hot spots throughout the bottle. Then you want to give the bottle to the baby, and then as they finish, you gently burp them. Let's go back to heating the bottle up. When you heat a bottle up, never heat it up in the microwave. You're going to want to get really hot running water, set the bottle in that bowl of hot water, and then shake it up. And then always test it a little bit, which means you can take the bottle and gently put it on your wrist to test and make sure that it's not too hot for the baby to drink. Because the baby can't tell you, and you may end up burning them. So when you go to feed a baby, there could be several ways depending on what the parents need. But in general, you can hold the baby like this, and you put the bottle in. And then when you go to burp them, you just gently support them, and you burp them in the back. Make sure you do that about halfway and towards the end, so that you don't end up with a baby giving you spit up back out. And then if a baby is refusing a bottle, generally they don't want it. So these are things and directions that you need to specifically make sure that you get from the parents of that babysitting child. Now, if you're looking at a toddler or a little bit older, or even littler kids or teenagers, if you're helping feed them, you may just be getting a bowl, a plate, things like that. And then remember that toddlers can feed themselves, so you may be getting small spoons or forks that are toddler friendly that the parents have. So just remember that you're following the instructions of feeding a toddler the way that they are from the mom. So when you feed, you always make sure you wash your hands before you get started with any of it. Gather your supplies, warm and prepared as you were directed. If you are placing a toddler or a younger child in any kind of high chair, make sure that you always buckle them in so that they stay safe. Don't leave them in those by themselves, because that could cause for more of an injury and a problem. So when you're dressing a kid, let's talk about the dressing for a few minutes. So when you're dressing them, to use our little friend here, you're going to start with your head. You might have them on a changing table, a bed, or the floor, depending on the age. You're going to start with putting it over their head, and then you'll put their little arms through. And then you'll make sure that you have whatever size diaper they needed, and you'll get them all dressed. Now, this may depend on what the parents have asked you to do. And you may not have to dress them unless you have an accident that happens, which if you're dealing with toddlers and little ones, you're going to probably put a new outfit on them at least once if you're babysitting for a long period of time. So once you get the baby all dressed, you may just be putting them in one outfit. You may want to check with the parents of what kind of outfit they would like them to have on. So you got your baby all nice and dressed. So you want to be sure that you're doing it safely. You want to, if you're undressing, you want to undress any buttons that are there. You want to remove any shirts or pants. If the child's old enough to dress themselves, they'll let you know if they feel like they are old enough to take care of it themselves. You let them do so, but with some supervision and some help. So that is what you do to dress an infant or toddler. Now, if you think about the changing of a diaper, always have the materials ready before you ever begin. You want to make sure that you have a new diaper ready. You have a clean diaper ready for the baby that's all nice and dressed. And then you want to be ready to wipe, so you want to have your wipes close by. And then you want to be sure that you discard that dirty diaper after you change the dirty diaper in an appropriate way. So your baby would be laying on a surface. You would remove their clothes that need to be removed, unbutton onesies if you're dealing with a toddler, and then you're going to want to remove the diaper that's dirty. So remove the diaper that's dirty. You're going to use your wipes to wipe, and then you will put on the new diaper. So put the new diaper under them and then back over them, and then you're going to Velcro the new diaper on, and then you will put the new clothes on. Now remember, when you're changing a diaper, it's always possible that you end up getting peed on. So just be aware that as you are changing the diaper, be sure that you can roll the diaper up and then discard it where the parents have a place to discard it, whether that just be in the kitchen trash or if they have a trash near a changing diaper that you're going to be using. So be sure that you, after you conclude changing the diaper or helping a toddler as they're being potty trained, they may be able to do it by themselves and you just have to assist them in washing their hands, but you may have to help them a little bit more. So those are two really important things to consider in what age you're going to take in as your babysitting jobs. So if you've got any questions on those things, you can reach out to me on your first aid tips or any of your babysitting tips and getting a resume prepared, things like that. So up next, you will be talking to Brad about your babysitting activities and movement.
Thanks, Becca. Excellent presentation. So thank you for joining my section of the program today. The title of my program is Physical Activity and Movement for Babysitting. So today we are going to talk about a couple topics that are related to physical activity and movement for babysitters. So today we will discuss what is physical activity and movement, how much should physical activity each child be getting, what are some safety precautions that you should take while children that you're watching participate in physical activity, and what kind of activities can you be doing with the children that you are babysitting. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off with a little brain teaser to get us thinking. In just a second, you're going to see three individual quotes, and you're going to take a guess at what year all three of those quotes came from. They came from the same person from the same year. So the first quote is, "The habits of physical exercise have decreased. There's been an entire change in the habits of this nation within the last 30 years. The next quote is, "We eat and give our children to eat large quantities of sugar as was never heard of in former generations." And the last quote, "In the early days, children worked with their parents, but these days the greater portion of parents, when they send their children to school, require little or no work for them." So before we change the slide, why don't we sit here and think about what year these quotes came from. Take 5 seconds. Okay, the answer is 1856 from a lady named Catherine Beecher. She wrote a manual called Physical Training, Health of Teachers and Pupils. So this again came from 1856, more than 150 years ago. And if you actually look at some of the quotes, I can't imagine what the people back in 1856 would think about the quantities of sugar that not only we're eating, but that our children are consuming as well, and the lack of physical activity that our kids are getting. The next slide here will show you a picture of actually what that manual looks like. This manual is clearly showing some stretching techniques and what I would think are jumping jacks or either just over the head stretches. So I think it's best to start off our conversation today with what is actually physical activity. Physical activity simply means movement of the body that uses energy. Walking, gardening, briskly pushing a baby stroller while babysitting, climbing the stairs, playing soccer, or dancing. Those are all good ways of being physically active. For health benefits, physical activity should either be in a moderate or an intensity style of physical activity. Again, when we're working with younger kids, we probably want to limit the amount of vigorous intensity, and we'll talk about some safety precautions here in a minute. But let's first talk about what is the difference between moderate and vigorous physical activity. The first thing we're going to talk about is moderate physical activity. Moderate physical activity can include walking. That's about 3.5 miles per hour or slower. So if you're just taking a leisurely stroll, that's probably moving at a moderate pace. Also goes the same for bicycling. General gardening, if you're gardening, maybe just raking, trimming shrubs, or planting. Also dancing is a fantastic activity, and dancing can be something you use all the time during your babysitting. Some families might have water activities like a swimming pool or access to a hose outside or a slip and slide or different water games. Playing tag and other light intensity indoor or outdoor physical activity games. If they're played at a light intensity, those would fall under the moderate physical activity spectrum. The next we'll talk about is the vigorous physical activity. Vigorous physical activity would be an example of running or jogging, lifting weights, or high intensity exercises where you really have your heart rate pumping. If you're swimming laps, that is a vigorous intensity physical activity. If you're playing soccer or basketball or different high intensity games or activities. Now, the best way to tell between moderate and vigorous physical activity is something called the talk test. The talk test is a simple way to measure relative intensity. In general, if you're doing moderate intensity activities, you can talk but not sing during the activity. In general, if you're doing vigorous intensity activities, you will not be able to say more than a few words without pausing for a breath. So, how much physical activity does the child need? It really depends on the age how much physical activity a child needs. If a child is between 3 and 5 years old, just simply them being physically active multiple times throughout the day is how much physical activity they are generally recommended to have. If the child is between 6 to 17 years old, the idea is for them to get 60 or more minutes of physical activity every day. And that needs to be a nice blend of moderate physical activity and vigorous physical activity, especially as our children are growing into their bones. We don't want to stress out their activities too much, but we also want to make sure that they are getting enough exercise to burn off those calories. So let's talk about some safety precautions for physical activity and the children that you will be babysitting. Children should be participating in activities that their bodies are physically prepared for and that they're strong enough for. Anybody that has ever watched a child try and do a push-up, you can tell that sometimes their bodies just aren't strong enough to do a push-up properly. Jumping jacks, pretty much most every kid can do a jumping jack. It might not be in the proper form, but pretty much every kid can understand how to do a jumping jack. And children should participate in the activities in which they're using their own body weights for short bursts. Again, using those jumping jacks, using some lunges, or just running around the yard is perfectly fine. Another safety precaution for physical activity in children is a very important one. Children should be drinking enough water throughout the day, both before, after, and during their physical activity sessions. If your kids are going to be out playing in the sun, they need to be wearing the proper amount of sunscreen and also wearing hats if it is a very, very sunny day or a hot day. I would use the parents' recommended sunscreen before applying your own. Maybe some kids need a larger SPF than others. So I would really talk with the parents and make sure that's a part of your discussion if the kids are going to be out and playing outdoors. The next is very important. Children should warm up before sports activities and afterwards. They need to make sure their bodies are nice and loose and limber before we start any sort of physical activities or outdoor games. If there is an injury, like Becca talked about earlier, you want to make sure and apply the correct treatment. I think it's a good rule of thumb. Anytime there's an injury, whether it be a cut on the finger, a Band-Aid, at least take note of it. And if it's serious enough, call the parents. And if it's really serious, you probably need to call 911 or the police department. But make sure the parents are up to date with any sort of physical activity injury. Next we're going to talk about is something that is just important as physical well-being, is the emotional injury. The emotional injury prevention is just as important. Physical activity can improve a child's self-esteem and reduce their anxiety and stress. The goal is to keep our kids engaged in activities that they enjoy. If they find enjoyment in the physical activities, they are more likely to participate in that activity during the time in which you have them and throughout a lifetime. An example I like to use is running. If you ask any kid under the age of 5 or 6 years old if they like to run, every single kid will raise their hand. Usually 6 years old and older, especially when you get to the middle school, high school age, if you ask kids who like to run, about half of them or less than half of them will raise their hand saying they enjoy running. That's because running has been used for the most part as a punishment, whether it's team sports or whether it is a punishment in school or physical education classes. So kids then apply a negative connotation to running and enjoyment. So they're not going to participate in something that is used as punishment. We need to make sure we are keeping kids engaged in activities that they can be successful participating in. If a child does not want to participate in an activity, don't force it on them. There might be a really good reason that they don't want to participate in the activity, and the best way to find this out is to talk to them. Take just a few minutes and talk to the kid. Hey, why don't you want to participate in this activity? Is there something that I can do to make this activity more comfortable for you, or can we make modifications to make this game more enjoyable? It's also important to make sure and praise the efforts of the child. Point out their personal bests and reinforce those desired behaviors. If we are taking the time to show that our kids, we are invested in what they're learning and what they're doing, they're going to open up to us, and they might try some different games or activities that they never thought of before. So let's make sure we are positively promoting our children using positive reinforcement to make sure our kids are enjoying what they are doing. So it is time to get to the fun stuff. So today we're going to learn a few games and activities that you can play with the kids. Now the game type and the duration of the activity depends on how many children you're watching and how much time you have with them. If you only have one child, you'll have to choose some different games than if you had 3 or 4 different kids that could participate in small group games. So you need to be really strategic about what games you choose, because you don't want to participate in a football game if you only have 2 kids. That's going to be a disaster, and you're not going to keep the child's attention. But you may be able to play a different game with a football instead of playing a small team game. So before we get started with any activity, I mentioned before, it is important to be stretching before our activities. Stretching is a good way to get our muscles limber and to get ourselves warmed up before our activities. These don't need to be any sort of crazy technical stretching routines. They can be something simple as toe touches, arm circles, side bends, try to touch the sky, sitting butterfly stretches. These are easy time burners, especially if you have kids. Every kid likes to stretch. And make it fun. You can count 1, they can count 2, you can count 3, you can count 4. Really make this an interactive part. And again, the more time you can spend engaged with the child, the more likely they are to follow your instructions. So after stretching, we can get to the fun stuff. The first activity we're going to talk about is a game I like to call counting walks. Walking is a great way to spend some outdoor physical activity time with the children that you are babysitting. So as you step, count up to a certain number with the children and have them copy the amount of steps of the number that you're saying. You can make it a silly step, a hop, you can have them go backwards. The idea of this counting game is just to get kids, maybe find the biggest number that they know and do different activities counting up to those numbers. You can count steps, you can count different twigs you see on the ground, you can count how many animals you see. You can really just spend a lot of time working on some math skills with the children and working on their physical activity. So I really like counting walks for a physical activity with a game. Our next walking game is another fun walking game. This is the fun nature walk. So take a walk with your children, whether you're gathering leaves, small sticks, grass, pine cones, rocks, pretty much anything that you find outside. Make sure the kids are picking up things you want them to pick up. These items can be collected and placed in a glass jar. This doubles as an arts and crafts project, and it can look really neat. A lot of times people do have glass jars or Tupperware containers. Make sure, of course, to ask the parents. You don't want to be using some nice china that they have around the house to gather pine cones in. If you are lacking certain elements of nature in the environment that you have, maybe in the neighborhood or at the home you're babysitting at, take pictures of things out in nature or out in the backyard, and then use them as a collage to take kind of an overall grasp and concept of things that you saw while you were out on your walk. Another walking activity is called the animal walk. Okay, you can take large pictures of animals on the floor, you tape them to the floor, and you have children step from one picture to another as the music plays, and you try to have the kids not step off the pictures. We used to play a game when I was a kid, like don't step on the lava. You have to skip from rock to rock. making sure you don't step in the lava. But we can use this one for animals instead. Make sure to have the children say the name of the animal. Remember, all of our physical activities can be learning opportunities as well. In school, our class is called physical education. We should be learning each time we are moving, and the best way to learn sometimes is through movement. You can have the kids hop from one picture to another, space some pictures out closer and further apart so you can work on the kids, small distance jumping and large distance jumping. You can also have the kids call out different names of animals and have the kids move throughout whatever space you have like that animal. If you have a kid and you say, what's your favorite animal? And they say a horse, have your child walk around like a horse, or a tiger, or a monkey. Any sort of animal can work with this animal walk. Next activity I have is called indoor cloth toss. This is a really, really good activity. You give each child a washcloth, either a small towel or a handkerchief, or anything that you have in the house, and use this to toss the cloth up into the air and to toss it to others. It's really just a game where the kids can take a piece of cloth, throw it up in the air. If you have a juggling scarf, those work best, or if you don't have a juggling cloth, like a Kleenex works really well for that. So ask the children to toss multiple cloths up at once. It's kind of like juggling if you have kids that are tossing more than one up at a time. In terms of skill level, you want to make sure to start with one cloth at a time and not having the kids start with too difficult of a task. If we assign too difficult of a task, the children can get discouraged and it can really prohibit them from wanting to participate in the activity longer. So again, start with a small towel or a handkerchief and just have the kids toss it up in the air. Maybe they can toss it up, do a spin and catch it before it hits the ground. Or a fun game we would play is you toss it up in the air and you wait for it to get as close to the ground as possible and you have to grab it just before it hits the ground. Next activity is also a fun one. This is called roll and activity. This is an activity where you can inspire arts and crafts, or you can just print things from the computer. You can draw or print off simple pictures with different types of physical activities, like bending, crawling, running, and these can be glued or taped to any box you have in the house, preferably a square one that will roll nicely. As much as we're all staying indoors lately, I'm sure there's plenty of Amazon boxes that we could use to tape things to. Again, instead of drawing pictures, you could take some magazines and cut the pictures out of people doing different physical activities, and then you want to take the turns tossing the dice, the box that has the pictures on it, and all the children can do the activity that shows up on the top of the box when it lands. Now, before you start going and cutting into mom and dad's magazines, maybe bring your own, or maybe see if you can get some magazines that could have been donated from a library or another maybe small business that are done with their magazines. Small motor activities could be substituted to make the game more interesting for older children. You can make it more elaborate or as simple as you want, depending on the age and skill level of your child. But this is a really good activity. It's pretty much just a giant dice full of activities. So next game is called safety game. Another arts and crafts activity that you can incorporate physical activity. If you do have colored paper, you'd want to cut out circles, one red, one green, and one yellow. And then you ask one child to be the traffic light. They hold up the green, and then the yellow, and then the red light. The idea is when the kids hold up the red light, the kids stop. When they hold up the yellow light, the kids walk. And when they hold up the green light, the kids are running. You can kind of teach kids that this is the proper way that stoplights work, and also you can work on safety during crosswalks. If you are watching a single child, you can play red light, green light. In this game, you have the child participate in different types of locomotor movements when you have the child. So if you hold up the green light, say green light skipping, and then the kid skips while they are going, and then you say red light, the kid stops. There's a lot of different physical activities, skipping, lunging, hopping, crawling, that the kids can do playing a game we called red light, green light. Next activity is another fun activity, and this activity can actually improve your relationship with your parents because it involves doing laundry. Children will enjoy a laundry basket full of different sizes of balls. You can put foam balls, tennis balls, beach balls, footballs, basketballs, wiffle balls, or ping pong balls. And the kids can take practice throwing the balls back into the basket, or the kids can roll the balls back and forth. You want to make sure that any of the balls that you're using are large enough not to be swallowed by the toddlers. Toddlers like to put things in their mouths. If you're using a foam ball, there's a chance the toddler could put the foam ball in their mouth and they could try and swallow that. So please keep a watchful eye on children while they're playing with these. If there's an alternative to this game that the parents would enjoy, it can involve folding socks. Folding socks is something that I don't think any of us actually enjoy doing, but this could be something to get positive praise from your parents. You take a basket full of mismatched socks, you match all the socks, and then the kids can take turns throwing the folded socks back into the laundry basket. Not only are you playing a game with the kids and keeping them engaged, you're helping the kid learn a life skill, folding clothes, and you're also helping the family with their laundry. Very, very fun game. And last but not least, once we are done with all of our physical activities for the day, regardless of whether it was a moderate intensity game or a vigorous intensity game, it's important to have a cool down. We want to go back to our toe touches, our arm circles, our side bends, trying to touch our sides, trying to touch the sky, sitting butterfly. It's very important to cool down. It's just as important as the warm-up, because once you get your muscles going, you want to make sure you have a chance to cool things down and relax once you are done. But the most important aspect of all of our physical activity is having fun. If you're having fun with the kids are going to have you back. A lot of times when you ask a kid how their day was in school, they talk about the most fun thing they did. And the most fun thing that they do can be physical activity, and it can be some of the movement games that you participated in that day. So let's make sure we're having fun. Let's make sure that we are being safe. There's a fine line between being childlike and childish. And especially with babysitters, and especially being a young child, you want to make sure the ones that you're watching, you're participating with them in a childlike fashion. I know it's fun to get caught up in the game and want to be competitive. I'm one of the most competitive people that I know, but you have to know that boundary, because if you are being too childish, the game can become unsafe for the child, and we want to make sure we are not crossing that boundary. So be childlike, not childish, and have fun. Our next speaker is going to be my friend Ashley Childs. She's going to talk to you about some fun ways to prepare healthy snacks and nutrition for the children that we are watching. Thank you for watching.
All right. Thank you, Brad. So in transitioning, we are now going to talk a little bit about, well, first we're going to talk about chore charts and how you can use these in your babysitting experience to make it a little bit easier for you. So when making a chore chart, this is super easy because it's things such as take a bath or brush your teeth or fold your laundry. So like Brad was saying, if laundry does have to be done, or if that's one of the expectations that the parents do have of you, and that has been communicated with you ahead of time, and you know that it's supposed to be done, you can involve the kids in that by making it a physical activity and making it a fun chart. So making a chore chart is easy as identifying those things that need to be done. So if a parent communicates with you the expectations are to have the laundry done, or to make sure that the child has their homework finished, maybe they have asked you to do the dishes, to take out the trash. It's really all dependent on, one, what your comfort level is with doing household chores, two, what they have communicated appropriately with you. If they've not told you ahead of time that that's something that you have to do, then as long as you are not required to do it or not expected to do it, and it's not outside of your scope of ability, then don't worry about it. But as far as brushing teeth and taking a bath, depends on how long the caregiver is going to be gone. If they'll be gone until after the child is supposed to be in bed, it may be the expectation that you help to get those kids ready for bed. And so in doing that, if you make a chore chart, it's a very simple task to do. So all you have to do is find those activities, find those chores, and you can either use a Word document if you have access to a computer. And as you see on the screen here, I just Googled or looked up some different pictures that had some of those activities already on them. You can put them on a Word document and size them appropriately, depending on what size of magnets you are going to use. And when it comes to the magnets, these are really easy to find. The best way to use it is just find a plain solid magnet with an adhesive backing. And then what I did was I just ordered some marbles, so glass marbles, and you can order them online, you can find them at the dollar store, or you can find them at Walmart or a craft store. And so what we'll do is you'll just take the picture of the chore that has to be done. You can cut it out, and then if you have a glue stick or a hot glue gun available, this is something that you'll probably want to do at home, again, so that way you are not putting the child at danger or in danger by having glue or any other potentially toxic substances around them. And then all you have to do is just glue the chore to the magnet and stick it to the back of the marble. So chore charts are great because the kids can be involved in that, and they can actually move once their chore has been done, can move it from one side to the other. And with that being said, just a really simple and inexpensive way to do that is to get a whiteboard. It can be just a plain whiteboard. You can get that from the dollar store as well. And this can be something that you put in a toolkit that you carry with you to whatever job site you're going, or it could be something that if the parent feels like they can financially support you in that, they can actually purchase the materials for you and help you decide what chores have to be done. So chore charts are really easy, and if you want some more information on that, when you have my contact information at the end of this, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to share. So moving on from that, we're going to talk about some healthy snack options. So at some point during the time when you were watching the children, you're probably going to be expected to give them either a snack or a meal. And some healthy snack options are really important to prepare and discuss with the parents or caregivers ahead of time, so you know what's to be expected. So that way you're aware of any food allergies, food intolerances, any food preferences of the children or of the parents. So some parents may not allow or may not support certain ingredients, or maybe they want to watch the amount of sugar that their children intake. And so with that, just being aware and being conscientious and respectful of those decisions by parents and caregivers is really important to have that conversation ahead of time. So if you do your research to know what foods are okay, that way you can go ahead and prepare the food either before you go to the site, or you can communicate with the parents and they may already have the snacks prepared for you in the refrigerator. That way you can just grab them as you're watching the kids. But if not, if they do expect you and you feel comfortable with preparing the snacks, that way you know what ingredients are okay to use, and you can communicate with the parents ahead of time if they're going to be the one to purchase those ingredients, or if that's something that you should prepare at your own home before going to the job site. It's also a good idea to ask what the children like to eat. So if the kids don't like something in particular, there's not really a point in you preparing it if you know they're not going to eat it. So when thinking about meals or snacks to prepare, just look for recipes that don't require very many complicated skills. So this all depends on your comfort level with cooking and with kitchen skills. And if it's something that you feel like a parent or guardian at your own home can help you prepare ahead of time, it's a great idea to involve them. And that way you don't have to worry about trying to prepare it while you're watching the kids at the same time. So if you look up some recipes ahead of time, you can review those with the parents of the babysitting job, and you can review those with your own parents too, to kind of think through, is this really a good recipe? Is this something that the kids might enjoy? Is this going to require a lot of effort from me? So review those with the parents, see if they're okay with the child having that as a snack before you prepare it, or before you purchase any ingredients, and get ready to give that to the child. So if you do have a snack idea that requires certain skills such as cutting, slicing, or chopping, anything that involves knives, just make sure that these may want to be prepared at your own home, put in a container, brought to you, or brought to the babysitting site with you. So as you see here, prepare snacks ahead of time and bring them with you. That way, all you have to do is when it's time for a snack, you can just grab it out of the container and you're good to go. You don't have to worry about trying to watch the children and handle a knife in the kitchen at the same time. Remember, your top priority is their safety. Remembering food allergies. So if you have a child and you're aware, the parents have already communicated this with you, it's a really good conversation to have ahead of time, so you know what they can and cannot have. you know what to be prepared for when preparing snacks, and then also to what to make sure that the children avoid when they are in the home. So just make sure, again, if you've got a child with a peanut butter allergy or with an allergy to peanuts, that those are not ingredients that you include in a recipe. So the next thing is going to be some nutritional snack components. So what does a healthy snack include? So if you're familiar with My Plate, this is something that is something that's put out by the USDA. So that's the United States Department of Agriculture. And what this does is it just shows the 5 different food groups. So you've got your fruits, your vegetables, your grains, your protein, and your dairy. So some examples of fruits are grapes, apples, strawberries, blueberries. Vegetables are celery, leafy greens, carrots. Grains are going to be like your cereals, pasta, any type of bread. Protein sources, meat protein sources are chicken, turkey. Some non-meat protein sources are going to be like your beans, peas, nuts, and seeds. And then dairy would be milk or yogurt. Dairy is another one to watch out for as far as food allergies or intolerances go, or preferences. If you've got a family that has chosen to have a non-dairy diet, make sure that you consider that as well. So these are the 5 food groups, and when you are looking for recipes for snack ideas, try to incorporate as many of these food groups as you can into your snacks to make it a well-balanced and nutritional snack or meal. So this blueberry snack mix, this is an example of a recipe that includes grains, it includes fruit, and you can actually customize it to where it includes some healthy fats and some proteins as well. So this is a recipe that has a 94% fat-free popcorn. It has toasted oat cereal, so if you have Cheerios. One thing to consider too is choosing lower sugar cereals. So notice these are not the Honey Nut Cheerios, so they don't have the extra sugar added to it. So your toasted oats, that's going to be a whole grain cereal, Life cereal as well, or any type of like Rice Chex. Those are going to be examples of whole grain cereals, and then blueberries. So you see down there, it does say optional peanuts. Again, if you have a child with a peanut allergy, obviously that's something you don't want to include, but there are some other alternatives to add a little crunch and add a little protein to it. So if you've got some pumpkin seeds or some sunflower seeds, you can put those in there instead. And then just a teaspoon of cinnamon. So if you want to switch up the flavor profile of it a little bit, cinnamon is a great spice to use, but again, just being aware of those food allergies ahead of time before you prepare the snack. Okay. And then this is a recipe card that you can use. If you can print this out later. It does give directions for you in preparation. So when you are getting ready to prepare the popcorn, you're going to pop it according to the package directions. So look on the back of the package. It will have directions for you. Or you can go ahead and buy the pre-popped popcorn. So there's great options that are available for you with popcorn that make it super easy to customize. And then again, just looking at the directions there, if you have any questions about the directions for the recipe, you can contact me later and I'll be happy to explain those. We do actually have a video of how to prepare the snack mix. Now with this video, I used what I had in my personal home. And so this may be something, just an example of how you can customize this recipe with what you have and also with what the kids like and what the parents approve of as well. So we're going to watch this video really quickly and then we will get back to it.
Consumer Science Extension agent. Today I just wanted to show you a really simple way to make a fun and easy snack that your kids can help you with at home, and you can use whatever you may have in the cabinet or cupboard to make this super easy and healthy trail mix. So what we're doing today, it's a popcorn-based trail mix, and I just have a few items that I had in my cupboard at home. So this is a 94% fat-free popcorn. Now popcorn is a great nutritious snack because it is a whole grain and does provide a great source of fiber. I have a Rice Chex cereal here. Now you can use whatever low sugar cereal you may have at home, like a So this is just the plain unflavored Chex cereal. I have frozen blueberries. If you've got fresh blueberries on hand, that's great, but frozen works fine too. And then I have some pumpkin seeds here too. So pumpkin seeds provide a good source of healthy fats and can be used in the snack as a different texture or crunch just to add to it too. So again, whatever you may have at home, if you've got dried fruits, that's fantastic too. But just whatever you've got in the freezer or what you've got in your fridge will work fine as fruits too. So we've got our grains here, we've got a healthy fat, and we've got a fruit. So before we assemble this, the first thing we need to do is wash our hands. So I turn on the water, wet my hands, wash with soap, scrub for 20 seconds. I'm going to use a clean paper towel to turn off the faucet, and then another clean paper towel to dry my hands. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our popcorn into a bowl. Now, the measurements are provided on a recipe card that will be available at the end of this video for you. Again, that makes about 14 servings of popcorn. I'm making this for myself at home. I don't quite need that much. So I did my popcorn. I'm going to add my rice Chex. I actually don't want to add all of it. Again, these are frozen blueberries. If you are using fresh, make sure that you wash and dry them before adding them to your snack mix. I also like using them frozen because it adds a different temperature to it. And then we're going to add pumpkin seeds. And at this point, as long as your kids have had clean hands, they can help mix together our snack mix. And then add just a few more pumpkin seeds to it. And we are good to go. So you can store this in plastic zip-up bags, which is fantastic just for a healthy grab-and-go snack. So if you guys are headed out, maybe to go for a walk, or you need just a mid-afternoon snack, they can already be prepared for you. And then, yep, that's a great healthy snack for you. So feel free to subscribe to my Facebook page, UGA Extension Thomas County Facts, for more recipes and information. Again, the recipe card will be posted at the end of this video. So stay happy, stay healthy, friends. Okay, so that's just one option that you can use for a healthy snack. Again, I called it a snack mix, a trail mix, whatever you want to call it. But that's something easy that the kids can help prepare. You can use dried fruits, you can use frozen fruits, so you can make it customizable as you see fit. You can use kettle corn popcorn, you can use regular butter popcorn, however you want to. Okay, so we do have a few more recipes for you, just to go through some other options. Becca, if you will. Okay, perfect. All right, so these are some berry jam party bites. So this is really easy. If you've got some strawberries and blueberries available, all it takes is whole grain English muffins. So you've got your grains group in there. Peanut butter, or again, if you've got somebody with a food allergy to peanuts, you can use sunflower seed butter or any other nut butter that you have available. Fresh or frozen sliced strawberries. With this, you do need to thaw them out. So an easy way to thaw out berries is you can do it under cold running water. Or if you want them to have a little burst of flavor, you can actually do it in the microwave too. So you've got your frozen or fresh blueberries, strawberries, and then you don't even have to use a knife for this. You can split them in half, split the English muffins in half using a fork.
and then spread 1 tablespoon of peanut butter on each English muffin half. So a tablespoon, that's going to be your serving size for this recipe. And then you're going to put your blueberries and strawberries on top of the peanut butter or other nut butter that you're using. So really easy snack to make. It's fun, it's colorful. So if the kids are able to, they can actually help make this one too. And then our next recipe is hummus. So if kids have never tried hummus before, this is a little bit more of a savory snack. So this one may also be something that you want to prepare ahead of time if you need some help with preparing it, as far as if you've never used garbanzo beans before, they're just chickpeas. They come in a can, so you will need to use a can opener. Calls for a clove of garlic, and with that, you can actually use garlic that's already pre-prepared in a seasoning mix too. Olive oil, tahini, that's going to be something that you can find pretty much at any grocery store, or you can actually use peanut butter or other nut butter for a sweeter taste. So you can just mash them with a fork, mash the beans until they're smooth, and then if you do have a blender, you can make it in the blender, but you don't have to. But this is something great that you can use with celery sticks, carrots, cucumber slices, bell peppers, or if you've got some whole grain crackers, it's a good option too. Okay, and then our last one is a yogurt crunch parfait. So a lot of these are dealing with blueberries just because of the time of year that we are in when this is being recorded. So we are in the midst of April right now, and blueberries are fresh in season. But again, you can use any fruit that you desire. Strawberries would be good in this recipe too. So just putting the fruit at the bottom of a jar or a bowl, layering it with some low-fat yogurt. This does call for lemon. If you use plain, it's going to cut back on your sugar content as well. And then using a tablespoon of crushed breakfast cereal. So you see here, they do use like a Chex cereal or again, like a Life cereal. And those are just 2 brands. Just any type of low sugar cereal would be great to put on top of this yogurt parfait. Super simple, super easy, and that's a way to get in 3 of those 5 food groups. So the biggest thing to take away is do not be distracted. So again, your priority is to make sure that the children are safe. And if you are preparing a really complicated recipe that requires your attention in the kitchen, you are less likely to be watching the children. And so if they're in the kitchen, they could potentially run behind you. They could, if you're working on a stove, they could touch the hot stove. So you want to limit as many distractions and hazards when you're preparing snacks as possible. So you promote the safety of the children first. Okay. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Becca.
So here is the contact information for the 3 of your presenters today. I was the first one, and I'm Becca Stackhouse, and I am the one that talked to you about the babysitter tips, first aid, and that kind of information. And then Brad was the one that talked to you about physical activity and how to incorporate some fun games. And then Ashley just finished talking to you about the healthy foods and how to incorporate that into what you're doing as you take your babysitting job. So do you guys have anything you want to add?
Have fun with your kids. Play lots of games. Be safe.
Right, yep. Just make sure that it's a fun experience for both you and the kids. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us at all. We're happy to help.
And then our last thing is we have an evaluation that's going to take you about 4 minutes to complete. There's the QR code that you can scan, or we'll attach the link in the information that we put out in the description. You do have to have this password to fill it out, and it is the Babysitter Tips, which is just the title of the presentation we just finished for you. And we will work to send you a completion of participation once we see that you have completed this evaluation. This evaluation is just to help us evaluate the how we presented the program to you, if there was anything that we can do better in the presentation of this. It is also going to help us with anything of just reports that we write on the presentation itself. So if you would like to have anything else, just leave a comment in the video that you watch and let us know, or reach out to one of the three of us. So thank you and have a great day.
Bye.